Speaker, this is the third reading of the bill, and generally that's a fairly tight debate. I think the member has strayed some distance from the bill itself, and I request that you pull it back to order.
Well, it's not so tight in the fact that the third reading is often a summing up of what actually goes on in the committee stages of the House. And I am listening to the member, and I'm starting to have concerns myself. So I would ask the member to address the trademarks bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I must say that we are disappointed that the bill does not include the Mātātua Declaration, that it was overlooked in the evolution of this bill. We need to see Māori-specific Indigenous knowledge and intellectual property protection legislation that gives due regard to the unique value of the Indigenous brand. What we're now calling for is a proactive approach in supporting Māori intellectual property protections. We want to support Indigenous declarations on cultural and intellectual property, including the Mātātua Declaration, and their expression in domestic and international law. Finally, I have to place on record how this House must acknowledge the inevitable refinement of policy that will occur following the government's response to Ko Aotearoa Tēnei report of the Waitangi Tribunal into the claims concerning law and policy affecting Māori culture and identity, that is Y262. This report has been uppermost on all of our minds this week, with the sad passing of the queer who was one of the original claimants, Sana Murray. The Y262 report described two categories of taonga related to cultural and intellectual property, which trademarks reflect. A taonga work is a creation of a pre-existing and distinctive body of knowledge, values and insights known as mātauranga Māori. A taonga-derived work is something that is inspired by mātauranga Māori, but is not a taonga in itself. It does not reflect traditional narratives and has no spiritual significance. It may look like it contains elements of Māori design, but has no connection to the ancestors. Example of a taonga-derived work could be the kuru on the tail of the Air New Zealand plane. Similar commercial logo and motifs, purpose-written waiata for schools and workplaces. Y262 report called for new standards governing the use of taonga works and mātauranga Māori, with a mechanism that allows kaitiaki to object to offensive or derogatory use or commercial exploitation without consent. It's also recommended the establishment of an expert commission established with specialists in intellectual property law, commerce, science and stewardship, consisting of both Māori and Crown members. Mr. Speaker, I touch on some of these issues canvassed in Y262 Ko Aotearoa Tēnei, as I believe they will be highly relevant to the future implementation of this bill. At the very least, there should be a qualifier which will enable legislators and policymakers with a reminder to keep alert to the consequential changes that will be required to address the Y262 findings. With these few comments in mind, we will support this bill.
I call the honourable member